When the show began, people made some presumptions about what it was going to be, and then as it grew and it had all these different elements, what was it like for you guys to see the fan base and what they were sort of keying into?
Yeah, it's always exciting. I mean, I think for us, when you're toiling away in these rooms and you're trying to come up with story and you're working really long hours, it is the fans ultimately that you're writing for. And when they come back and they tell you that they like something, it just motivates you that much more.
And I think our fans have been so loyal and so supportive of the show in so many different ways, and they come from so many different places and so many different walks of life. And the show has been meaningful for different people in different ways. You know, when Greg and I were in New York shooting the pilot, people would say, "What are you working on?" You'd tell them. And I go, "Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Oh, I think I know. I obviously know Michael and I know Jim." Easy, right? By the end of the first season, next to impossible, because you'd set up and we'd put these guys out on the street corner and bedlam would ensue. We went to Times Square to pick up some pieces with Michael. You know, we thought we'll be very clever and roll in with a small, lightweight, so small footprint, go with a small crew and just go in and get the scenes in which Times Square shuts down and Samaritan starts talking to Finch. We thought, oh, we'll get in, get out, it'd be great. We can turn up and there are, you know, by the end of the first take, 500 people standing in 3 rows deep. I mean, it is Times Square, but so maybe we should have rethought it. But we literally had to change the shot because, like, no, we can't possibly shoot this. You know, so we had to sort of modify on the fly. But that relationship with the fans, where they're watching what you're, you know, the world you're building, and they care about it so deeply, is incredibly moving indeed. We always joke with Michael that you must never, ever go to Tumblr, ever. Anyone says, don't ever go to Tumblr. But the art...
You've given so much to Tumblr, though.
And they've given so much to us. So much artwork that we'll keep and show to Michael someday, so many years in the future. But that, I mean, that, like, if you do go on Tumblr and avoid some of the more explicit posts, the artwork is so beautiful, and that's moving in itself. Like, you know, we take great pride in creating a beautifully acted and beautifully produced show. That was one of the things we loved about doing it. And you go and see some of the artwork that these folks are making, and it's beautiful.
Tumblr is a thing where people trade artwork?
Yes.
A lot of fanfic.
You'll be tempted to go, Tony.
Yeah.
One of the things we all were amazed by was we saw this promo trailer that had been cut by a fan. And we didn't know where they were from initially, but we were so moved by the promo, the trailer they cut together was so cinematic that we found out who the person was. And it turns out it was a Chinese student. And she cut this all on her own. I don't even know how, because it looked amazing. Ashley Zhang was her name. Noreen tracked her down, and we asked her if she would be okay if we brought it to Comic-Con, and we showed it at New York Comic-Con. And it was honestly one of the best trailers, promos I've ever seen for the show. And still remains, I think. So.
I would think when you asked her that, she had to say yes. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, we joked about the Tumblr thing, but, you know, beyond you guys seeing with the Root and Shaw aspect, how it's working with the actresses, and you want to go there in the story, what was it like seeing sort of the fan reaction to that, and how much that became really meaningful to people as time went on?
Some of these things we'd laid out from the very beginning, some of the things we'd figure out, we felt a real responsibility from the very beginning that we needed to know where this story was going, and we'd stay true to that, and then adapt as you go. And then sometimes you go where the chemistry takes you, as we did with Root and Shaw. And it's amazing to see how meaningful that becomes for people. I think for us, we didn't really think much about it. I mean, it was just these were 2 characters who clearly had chemistry, clearly belonged with one another. You know, obviously this is a sociopath, as Denise laid out, a sociopath and a murderer, so not exactly role models, but...
That's the poster to the romantic comedy.
But there's a very cool relationship to explore there, and those two actresses are so charming that I think, yeah, the fans were not going to resist their charms either.
I know we've talked before about how it's New York and you can't stop people from walking on the streets. So what was it like for you to be on this show for 5 years and to see the challenges and hopefully sometimes entertaining of filming in just the middle of New York?
Well, it was often entertaining. It's like the circus has come to town, and depending on the neighborhood you're in or the kind of characters that are walking around nearby, you get all kinds of unusual interactions, and, you know, people that want to, I guess, for better or worse, theatricalize themselves or put in a shout out to the neighborhood, or get into the ethics of you being there and occupying their space, and there were more great characters than you could tell. I'll never forget shooting in Brighton Beach, and we had blocked off a sidewalk because we were doing walk and talks in front of authentic looking Russian shops and stuff, and a Russian lady who was accustomed to doing her marketing in the morning was being asked to step off the sidewalk and go between orange cones, because otherwise she would be in the shot, and she put her bags down and says, "Why I should go in street? You go in the street, you come here with your gear and your garbage." And she wasn't having it. Eventually I guess we didn't have anyone that could clarify the issues with her in Russian, so it was just easier to kind of let her go to the store.
Sure.
What a privilege to be able to shoot in New York for 5 years. I think all the stuff we scripted in the pilot, we're like, well, they're never going to let us do any of this stuff, and then they did, and they kept letting us do all this stuff for 5 years. It was great. New York became a character in the show, or many characters in the show.
With those many characters, you develop this sort of deep bench of people, and even in the final season, you bring some deep cut characters pop up there. What was like for you, and how did you decide when you wanted to bring back these faces from the past, and kind of did you look at your own giant board and be like, oh, we should bring this person forward?
We actually did. We did. We talked and debated a lot in the writer's room. We had a board and we threw up names, and we talked about all the characters that we loved and who we wanted to see most and how we would see them again. And it really just kind of became about satisfaction, who we thought would be the most satisfying to see again, but also who still had things left with our characters, with Team Machine to work out. So. It was fun.
So you would have some very clever and sort of fun takes on things sometimes, going back to the episode also where you saw all the sort of alternate ways that things could go, and everyone died basically, seeing the different scenarios.
If Then Else, written by Denise.
And that's an excellent episode. Did you enjoy when you got to sort of deconstruct your show and sort of go at a different angle at a storyline like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had so much fun with that. I think maybe you're referring to when they speak to each other, and it's a little bit meta when they're talking about
that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That was great fun, and it was great fun to kind of envision how our characters would die without actually having to kill them. Right.
Not that we enjoyed that. Not that we sit around in the writer's room and fantasize.
No. Not that we enjoyed it.
We would never do that.
No. But just kind of without having the ramifications of that, what would be some great deaths? What would be interesting, and what would tug at your heartstrings, and what would you really want to see? So it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and Jonah had great vision for that episode as well. I think it was you that had the idea for the flashbacks in which Finch is teaching the machine chess. And it really lent a different quality to that show. I think it really gave it a different type of gravity.
Sure, Denise is nice now. Yeah. Times she's like Jonah.
Well, there was that. Now, that was the great thing about these episodes. Where there's so much, you start with this thing and you have this kind of goofy idea, and you go pitch it to, in this case, J.J. Abrams, and J.J. said, that sounds fun, let's do it. And I thought, okay, I've never done television before. And then I started working with Greg, who's like, this pilot is like 400 episodes in one. What are we doing here? And then you build and you get to work with people like Denise, and a brilliant group of writers, where by the 4th or 5th season they're coming in with ideas for episodes like that, where you're going, we knew where we wanted this thing to go. We never imagined we'd get to that. The ambition of that. It's such a gift. That fan relationship is so powerful and so cool, and such a unique thing to be creating while they're consuming and watching, and they're thinking about it and you're thinking about it. You have to be extremely careful. You have to be extremely careful that doesn't wind up steering the boat a little bit. I think with us, we maintained a healthy but respectful distance.
Yeah, Michael, we were going to kill you in season 3, but then
I expected it.
I don't think anyone ever pitched kill him. Did they? No. We're like, no, we can't.
Show's over.
Finch was sacred, always sacred.
Yeah.
Did you like when they throw those curveballs at you, whether it be an imaginary death, or playing every other character on the show? You know, did you like when you got to do this sort of unusual moment?
I love that stuff. I thought the more conceptual we went, the better it suited me, and I just marveled at how the bravery of writing this stuff and then just assuming, well, we're going to shoot that and make sense of it, and the audience is going to understand it and like it. I mean, we'll see. We have a bit of that kind of material coming up in.
We do indeed.
And you know, we should point out, you know, an amazing visual effects department, Jay Worth. It was responsible for the look. You know, when we go into to machine point of view, or even what we call Samaritan point of view, and making that explicit to the viewer. And it was always amazing. Like when we take these flights of fancy, whether we were doing God mode, or in Denise's episode, Jonah, the If Then Else, people's capacity to just follow it and stay with it, and they really, the hardcore fans of the show just ate it up, and they wanted more of it. And I think that's difficult sometimes on broadcast television, because you do have people watching sometimes who are casual viewers, and if you're not, I mean, I would get these comments from people where they'd say things like, yeah, I like your show, but that's not a show I can like go in the kitchen and get a snack. I really gotta watch it. Like they were almost resented the fact, I'm like, oh, that's kind of what we want you to do. It's lean in. And I think that was one of the things I'm most proud of the show.
Are there storylines, you know, that you didn't tackle that you know, that really leap out to you that you almost did or wanted to do? I mean, there's a million reasons, whether it be actor availability or just something that comes up. Is there something that you're like, oh, we almost did that?
Wow. 5 years of almost. But one of the things I've been very proud of and satisfied with the experience, and we work with this core group of writers. We just got very lucky right out of the gate. Some that Greg had worked with before, and some new folks. We just got super lucky, and in hindsight I realized just how lucky we got. It's like just a great group, and you know, people there. When we went to the 100th episode party and read the list of people who have been there since the pilot, it was so long. Greg and I had to kind of split it up and keep going. People got bored and wandered off. It was like, you know, we had this family for years and years and years. And one of the things that was so cool about that writer's room was I really feel like, and look, you know, you'd always love these things to go on forever to a point, as long as you didn't compromise them or, you know, make the thing into a parody of itself. But we got to go to a lot of the places that we wanted to go to. I think, honestly, one of the only regrets that I have, and I'm very proud of the last few episodes of this season. Very proud of the last season. Very proud of the last few episodes. But we had imagined an opportunity, and I wish we'd had more time to explore Dark Finch, and in a way, I guess I wish we'd gotten to that turn for your character a little bit sooner. But you do want to see Michael with an opportunity to kind of let it rip a little bit. And I'm very proud of what we were able to do. We've got some fantastic material there, but that was a sense for, well, there's more room to explore those ideas.
Well, actually, Jim's really after us to do the movie, so we got to get the movie. But then when he actually pitched me, he goes, "No, it'll be great. We'll go to Moscow and we'll get Snowden on the show." And I went, that's kind of interesting.
But how
Maybe
would,
that's the
how
card we
would
have to
Jim
turn.
be in the movie? That's my question. It's a question.
There is a way.
Well, that leads me well to my final question, which is, you know, what do you think is in the future for these characters, as far as, you know, that final scene clearly shows, you know, that the machine is back and it is, you know, speaking to Shaw. You know, we have the happy ending for Finch, but can he really stay away from this whole world? You know, what do you see in the future of these characters?
I think that's the moment at which we hand over our story to the fans. You know, that's the moment at which the thing that we've all been working on for so long really becomes, you know, it's this slow journey from the beginning, from the pilot when no one knows or gives a shit about what you're working on, to this moment in the finale when you have 10 million people who are engaged in and excited about this world. That's where you kind of hand over the reins and you say, where do you think it goes? Which is a really, you know, a cool thing to be able to do, a cool and very, you know, lucky situation to be in, where people really care about the story you've been telling. When you look at it, we never read any of the kind of alt fiction that was out there about our show. You look at some of the artwork, but you don't want to read the alt fiction because you don't want to steal anyone's ideas, and you don't want to get steered in a, or you don't want to have the horror of like, wow, that's a much better episode than the one that I just wrote. But maybe now we'll get a chance to take a look and see where the fans thought the story would go.
I will ask you that question too, though, Michael. What do you think is the future for Finch? Is just he and Grace will live a happy life, or will he be assisting Shaw one day again?
Well, I think he has a chance, and of course, the ending of the show is a beginning of, the next chapter in our imaginations. But I think he has a chance to live more conventionally. But I think at the same time, the same passions and interests, that sense of mission that Mr. Finch has clearly always had, I don't think he'll ever be able to let go of that. So I don't know if he can go deeper, if he can work more obscurely than he has before, if he can get inside the web somehow and be untraceable, undetectable, unknown, then that might be. And can he do that and have a house in town and a more foolproof cover than ever before?
Mm-hmm. Tell me this before we go, guys. Bear lives a long, happy life, right?
I personally believe that Bear goes on to have very many puppies.
Who will assist,
Yes.
the next generation.
Yes, the next generation of
That would
crime
be the
fighters.
spin-off on Animal Planet.
Yes.
Bear the fight,
Person of
crime
interest
fighting
puppy.
dog. Yeah,
Puppies of interest.
we could do it. We could do it.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for everything.
Appreciate
Thank you.